We're live. Countdown. Hello, I am Willie Bragg. Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show, where we like to discuss a whole lot of politics. And what can I say? I feel like sometimes history repeats itself. You ever get that feeling, that deja vu historical time period where it's like, gee, where didn't we come here before? Or sometimes people would make an analogy of a previous era and say, well, what happened in the previous era, we're obviously repeating this. And sometimes when they're saying there's a correlation, it's not even apples and oranges. They're so wrong that it's apples and washing machines. That's how ridiculous it can become. So anyway, let's start with 9/11. 9/11 when it happened, September the 11th, 2001. It was terrible what happened. It really was. I mean, it was. You heard the expression, "Oh, and we just call it a Tuesday." Well, it was literally Tuesday morning when it happened. Another day in the life of America, and the Twin Towers got attacked. And the Pentagon was attacked. We were under attack, and so the response, was not conducted well, in my view. There was a better way to, in my opinion. I'm not even going by hindsight. I was correct then. I'm correct today. The way that the Bush administration went about it was all fucking wrong. They went about it at turning it into almost World War III, whereas it could have been treated as a police action to go after the real bad guys, but it ended up becoming almost a culture clash between the West and the Islamic world, and it didn't have to be that way. But domestically, what happened? We had the USA Patriot Act become law really quick. I don't even know if there was an opposition to it. I think a few people opposed it. Handful of people opposed it. But in fact, I don't even know what the votes were one way or the other, but I'm going to assume that there was mostly people from both parties were in favor of it. And I would say maybe you had a tiny section from both parties that were bothered by it and concerned about it. So, and I'm going to have to look that up. But I think that's actually the way it happened. Well, then we instantly went into Afghanistan almost right away. Now, I'm glad we're out of Afghanistan. We were there longer than we should have been. You can still make an argument, and I don't, but you can make an argument. I'm not going to look down on some people. It's like, well, they were housing the Al Qaeda network, so we had to go and strike into Afghanistan. Now, I think it, looking back, I kind of was okay about going to Afghanistan then. I think that looking back in hindsight, what should have been done was to go strategically after the Al Qaeda network itself and not to go into Afghanistan, because that just created a lot of problems. It was trillions of dollars we flushed down the toilet with our 20 years in Afghanistan. If it was correct to be there, let me put it this way. I don't think it was correct to be in there in hindsight. But even if it would have been correct to be in there, we should not have been there for 20 years. Okay. Now, with regard to Iraq, from day one, I knew that it was fucked up to go into Iraq. And hold tight a second. We need to do this here. All right. There we go. No. Okay, there we go. What we needed to do instead of going into Iraq, because here's the thing. What did the Bush administration tell us? They told us that Saddam Hussein was in bed with Osama bin Laden. Any damn fool would realize there's no correlation, not even one bit close. Only the ignorant will look at the Middle East map and think, well, they're all Muslims. They're all out there to kill us and get us. I mean, only a fool would believe that, because you had Osama bin Laden, who was a radical jihadi, a radical element of Islam, if you will. You had Saddam Hussein, who was not even all that religious. Yeah, he was a Muslim, but he's like the Christian who goes to church on Sunday. The man was as secular as he could be. And Iraq was one of the most secular countries in the Middle East at the time. Women did not have to wear a burqa, or they were not forced to dress under the guidelines of what Sharia society would be like. They didn't have to dress up in burqas or wear the little head coverings. Some did because that was their choice, but many didn't. Women were treated under Iraqi law. Women were treated on par with the West. Christians were not persecuted in Iraq. In fact, the Ba'ath Party had a lot of Christians in it. In fact, I believe Tariq Aziz, who was the number 2 man under Saddam Hussein, was, I believe he was a Byzantine Catholic. I know he was a Christian. But the point I'm trying to make is that Iraq was a very, very secular country. They did a bad thing by going into Kuwait in 1990. I'm not going to dispute that. But I don't know if the United States going in there on the behest of Saudi Arabia, because that's really what we were doing there. We were there to defend Saudi Arabia, a country not worth defending, by the way, a country that's actually at the source of terrorism against the West around the world. And I used to be semi-ignorant, think, well, all those countries, they're all plotting. I still was, did not like the way the United States handled things, but I sort of did suffer from that type of mindset that they're all out to get us, kind of, what have you. And I know better now. If you look geographically, when people like Glenn Beck talk about a caliphate, there is no way you can create a caliphate when you have a divided Islam, and Islam is divided in 50 different ways. Just as the only comparison I'm going to make with the left in this country, the right wing who fears the left so much, especially when Obama became president, they thought that, I hear people say Obama was a Maoist. I hear people saying Obama was a Stalinist. Obama is some kind of variation of communism. And those were the nicer criticism against Obama. You get really fucked up when people call Obama a Nazi, which is totally ignorant, or when they go into conspiracy mode about, well, Obama is a secret born Kenyan Muslim trying to destroy Western civilization. That kind of mindset that existed back then was really infuriating. But the point is, let's say, for instance, if Obama was a Stalinist or Obama was a Maoist or whatever, let's say it's true. It isn't. I mean, Obama himself said that he's no different from a moderate 1980s Ronald Reagan Republican. That's closer to the truth than anything else. But the left is divided. So if Obama's a Stalinist, then the Maoists are going to be mad at Obama. The Trotskyists are going to be mad at Obama. The Social Democrats are going to be mad at Obama. And depending on what other school of the left there is out there. So if you want to apply that into a Middle Eastern map, a geographic map on ideology and theocracy combined, Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden would not have a fucking thing in common with each other. In fact, Osama bin Laden once referred to the Ba'ath government of Saddam Hussein as socialist infidels. So calling people socialists as a derogatory term just doesn't exist in America as a domestic American conservative favorable name to call your political opponents. It exists in the radical extreme elements that exist within Islam too, halfway across the world. And no, I'm not being Islamic phobic for saying that, so nobody better say anything to me about that. I'm just calling it out what's going on around the world and how Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden are not in any way, shape, or form connected with each other. But in 2002, there was a vote to go into Iraq. Pretty much all the Republicans were for it in both houses of Congress, with some abstaining. You know, your Ron Paul types, for example, was skeptical of going into Iraq, and he turned out to be correct. With the Democrats, you had, you know, Democrats being all over the place perpetually. Pretty much the Democrats were kind of somewhat divided, which most corporate Democrats at that time were pretty much for it. While, you know, anybody who was on the left side of the Democratic Party, like the late Paul Wellstone in the U.S. Senate or Dennis Kucinich in the U.S. House, they were against the war, and they were the ones that were correct. Joe Lieberman was not correct. War criminal. Joe Biden was not correct. He voted for the war. War criminal. Hillary Clinton was not correct. She voted for the war. She's also a war criminal. They're all war criminals, just like George W. Bush is a war criminal, just like Dick Cheney is a war criminal, just like John Bolton is a war criminal, just like Condoleezza Rice is a war criminal. Just you name it. Just like pretty much all the Republicans in the Senate and the House that voted for the war, along with all the other Democrats in the House and Senate that voted for the war, they're all war criminals. They all got blood on their hands. Never forget that. But with the Republicans, they were pretty much almost uniformly for it. Just like today, that the Democrats are almost uniformly for picking a fight with Vladimir Putin. Is where the correlation is. It's just a different year, and the parties kind of switched around and everything. I was consistent in 2002. I'm consistent in the year 2022. But in 2002, you had your neocons, garden variety, mainstream Republicans who basically drank the Kool-Aid about weapons of mass destruction and all of that. You had the Christian right that read prophecy into this, and you had them basically turning those who were opposed to the Iraq War as part of the culture war. The culture war just didn't start with Potato Head. It just didn't start with transgender women going into the restroom all of a sudden or anything like that, whereby going to the transgender woman can use whatever bathroom she wants to use or he wants to use, whichever that person identifies themselves with. And same thing with the whole Potato Head and all that. That's just stuff that Republicans want to talk about because they have nothing to offer to the table as far as addressing the economic woes in our country. Sadly, same thing with the Democrats. They're I don't even know why Republicans are so scared of Democrats, because Democrats are so much like moderate Republicans. But anyway, so they turned that into a culture war back then. But, I remember September 2001, in a joint session of Congress, George W. Bush was doing his State of the Union address, and he said that every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you're with us or you're with the terrorists. That's George W. Bush, and that's a hot one, considering that his father worked in the CIA and was responsible. Yeah, former President George Herbert Walker Bush was in the CIA, and he helped perpetuate a lot of the terrorism around the world. And because the CIA is a terrorist entity, just as much as ISIS, just as much as Al Qaeda, just as much as all the bad guys over there in the Middle East, and all the bad guys that exists in China, all the bad guys that exist in Russia and North Korea. The CIA is just as bad as they are. I would like to see the CIA abolished. So I could probably get. Thank goodness I'm not monetized yet. But anyway, with regard to terrorism, look in the 1980s, the United States supported the very people that would become the Al Qaeda network and the very people that would become the Taliban. Why? Because they were fighting against those big bad godless Soviets. Ooh, and look at how the United States responded to Vietnam going into Cambodia, considering that the Vietnamese Communist government was significantly more humane than the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. The United States had their butt hurt over Vietnam, so they decided to support Prince Sihanouk, I cannot pronounce his name, in Cambodia, who had a strategic alliance with the Cambodians to try to chase out the Vietnamese government. The United States supported Prince Sihanouk. Sorry, I cannot pronounce the name. And China supported the Khmer Rouge because they were both opposed to the Soviets at the time, and it was a Cold War posturing. So the United States indirectly sided with the Khmer Rouge, just as the United States are indirectly siding with terrorism in the West by being buddy with Saudi Arabia and indirectly contributing to a genocide in Yemen with the arms sales that we do to places like Saudi Arabia. But anyway, need I go on with that? Well, let me go and do this. So that was then. You would think we have learned our lessons. Well, the one good thing I will say in the year, since the latter years of George W., probably the last 2 years of George W. Bush in particular, and this still exists as a mindset today, that being anti-war is not so very, very partisan as it used to be. Yeah, 20 years ago, it was pretty much 95% leftists at the anti-war cause. All of a sudden, you had a bunch of disgruntled libertarians and paleocons that went in. They were tired of this shit too, and they went and they were at the anti-war protests. And I remember these people at the anti-war protests too. About 2007 and 2008, they were tired of George W. Bush, and a lot of them were excited about Ron Paul running for president. So we go into even the present with Donald Trump, the quasi-president. 2016, when Donald Trump ran for president, he actually sounded to the left of Hillary Clinton on foreign policy, saying that we would get out of these wars abroad. And when he was battling Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush in the primaries, he almost sounded like a Republican Noam Chomsky, so to speak. I mean, he was critical. He sounded like Michael Moore on stage. It was really weird. And you have to see it for yourself. Even if you hated Trump on the left, you had to kind of root for him compared to the other clowns out there, like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush, in spite of Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush having a more civilized tone to their voice. Those two motherfuckers are actually worse policy-wise than Donald Trump. For damn sure, Ted Cruz is. But anyhow, getting back what I was going to say, when it came to the 2016 election, well, all I'm going to say is that Hillary Clinton had her butt hurt because she lost the election. She did not lose the election because of Bernie Sanders. Let's get that out of the way. She did not lose the election because of Jill Stein. She did not lose the election because of celebrities like Susan Sarandon. Let's get that out of the way. What made Hillary lose the election was Hillary Clinton. It was easy to beat that buffoon, Donald Trump. All they had to do was send Bill Clinton to those 4 states that he was not allowed to go into: West Virginia, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And she lost all 4 of those states. And apparently Bill Clinton let Hillary Clinton and her advisors know about that after the election. But what did Hillary Clinton do? She blamed everybody but herself. She said that she primarily said that Vladimir Putin is the cause of her losing the election, because she is convinced that many Democrats, whether they're all pretty much all the corporate Democrats, and even a few on the left side of the Democratic Party, are the actual progressives, are sure that Vladimir Putin was politically in bed with Donald Trump, which he was not, and they were not in bed with each other. Vladimir Putin did cause some chaos through the internet, social networks, and what have you for the election of 2016, but it was not that he was choosing a side. He see the United States as a powder keg with the culture war. He wanted his ass to rebate that. That's pretty much what. If you want to say he's guilty of that, I'll go along with that. But isn't that what a lot of countries do? Try to create havoc in society in elections. Well, Russia wouldn't be any more guilty of that than any other country. And it's not like we don't do the same thing to the other countries, okay? It's not like the United States do not try to create havoc across the world. So keep that in mind. So now the thing about it is that because Donald Trump has been called a Nazi and a white nationalist by Democrats and some to the left of your typical Democrat, corporate Democrat, and he's not a Nazi. He's not a fascist. He's not a white nationalist. He's an asshole. He's a billionaire. That can be said, but they claim he's a white nationalist. So therefore, as far as white nationalists supporting for Donald Trump, I got news for everybody who would say that. Majority of the white nationalists that engage in the two-party system politics in the last several decades have voted Republican in every presidential election. Them voting for Donald Trump is no different from them voting for Mitt Romney or John McCain or George W. Bush or Bob Dole or George Herbert Walker Bush or Ronald Reagan or Richard Nixon or what have you. They're going, and it's not even that any of them are white nationalists. They're not either. So, I mean, they do see the Democratic Party as the party of the blacks. They see the party as the party of the LGBTQ. They see the party as the party of Hispanics. They even see the party as the party of the Jews. That's how they see the Democratic Party. And they are like, well, the Republicans don't quite have that kind of baggage on them. So to them, in their mindset, the Republicans are the lesser evil, and that would include Donald Trump. So anyway, but as far as they're now saying that Vladimir Putin is the new Hitler. Everybody's the new Hitler. I remember when the butcher of Baghdad, Saddam Hussein, people were saying he's the new Hitler. Osama bin Laden is the new Hitler. Every bad person on the international stage becomes the new Hitler. So, but you want to know what are actual Nazis? Other than just, some domestic Nazis here and there in Russia that would be like your domestic Nazis in Idaho or someplace like that, or some little Christian identity church in Missouri or what have you. Yeah, you will probably have that in Russia like you will have here in the United States. But I tell you where there are actual Nazis, and that's in the Ukraine in the Azov battalion. There are actual Nazis. They celebrate Stepan Bandera, who is a Nazi sympathizer. And that doesn't mean that Ukraine is a Nazi government, but there are Nazis in the military and there are Nazis in the government, in the various ministries in the government. So does that mean the United States and NATO should go and side with Russia and go and invade Ukraine? No. And do I think that it's good for Russia to invade Ukraine? No. Do I think the Ukrainians are pure and sweetness and sweetness and nice and everything, sweetness and spice and everything nice? Not necessarily. I mean, there are people who are non-Nazis and anti-Nazis in the Ukraine, in government too. But the thing about it is, nobody's the good guy in this whole scenario. Ukraine is not the good guy. Vladimir Putin is not the good guy. U.S. and NATO are not the good guys either. China's not the good guy. None of these countries in the world stage, and we do not need to have World War III because Democrats today have an axe to grind with Vladimir Putin for supposedly being the reason Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. You're going to go and cause World War III because of Hillary Clinton losing in 2016? Really, Democrats? Really? That makes y'all just as bad as Republicans that wants to go and pull out of the Iranian peace treaty because they want to start World War III and want Israel and Iran to throw nukes at each other. So, I mean, and so the Democrats' version of that is, let's go and try to start World War III because, damn it, they cost Hillary Clinton the presidency. You see how stupid that sounds, Democrats? But you see, the Democrats and Republicans are divided on this issue. There's a lot of nuances. You just can't look at a one-size-fits-all when it comes to Democrats or one-size-fits-all when it comes to the Republicans. There's a nuance to this. I'll start with the Republicans first. I hate Mark Levin, but Mark Levin was correct when he said there is a pro-Putin wing of the Republican Party. He's not the pro-Putin wing. He's your typical neocon, rattle-sabling asshole, and that almost make him worse. Almost. There are Republicans that in the Republican Party, there are people in the Republican Party who looks at Vladimir Putin as the man who's defending white Christian civilization. And they're like, well, he's certainly treating those homos the way they need to be treated in Russia. There is that aspect. Some of them are social reactionaries, homophobes, and all that. They look at him as defending what they consider traditionalist Christianity of the West. So they're sympathetic toward Vladimir Putin. A lot of them would be on the religious right. But you see, the religious right are also divided. They're not one size fit all. You got some on the religious right who loves Putin for those reasons. But you also got some on the religious right who will join with the regular neocons and, dare I say, even corporate Democrats on their hatred of Putin for their own reasons. And you know, they see Russia, they love neoconservative wars, and they don't like that Russia is actually supporting places like Syria and Iran, because remember, so you got a Republican Party that they're kind of divided on this question. So then you got the Democrats who are, again, as I said, a lot of them have this Trump derangement syndrome. They're like, Vladimir Putin used Donald Trump as a way to keep Hillary Clinton from winning the White House. And my own conspiracy theory about that is, fuck that shit. I say that what got Donald Trump in the White House were the Clintons themselves who convinced Donald Trump to run in 2015. But whatever. So, but the point is that both parties are divided. You got people. There are people on the left who are critical of war. They were critical of war under George W. Bush, and they're going to be critical of war under Joe Biden. And that's where I stand. And I link arms with the libertarians and some of the more benign paleoconservatives who wants to not get America involved in another war because we can't afford it. And when nuclear weapons are involved, that's another thing right there. The United States is a nuclear weapons power. So is Russia. That should give you pause more than anything else. It really should. Honestly, I want y'all to think about that right now. So there is that. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As the First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. I'm going to make an appeal to each and every one of you if you're new new person, or even if you're not subscribed, but you look at my videos every once in a while, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, because we got algorithmic problems with YouTube. YouTube are signaling out independent content makers, and this is happening across the board. So there are names bigger than myself that are complaining about this, but I'm convinced it's happening to me too. So in a sense, I'm shadow banned, and I would like for you to overcome this shadow ban by please subscribing to this channel, because we need a voice. We need more voices out there. It's not about me, but it's because I encourage everybody, as many people, especially my leftist brethren, to go and form their own platform, because we need to get our message out. We need to get our message out to the masses, and we need to put a stop to business as usual right now, which is what we got with Republicans and Democrats alike. So remember, wage, fan the flames of discontent, wage class warfare all day long, and we're definitely Julian Assange. Until next time, I'm Willie Bragg. I will say music.